Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for a Projecting with People project interview. Today, our special guest is a project manager. He has had 10 years of experience in the IT industry and has probably worked in quite a few different roles within that time. Um, he has generously offered me 30 minutes of his time to give you some insights into his career as well as some of his pain points, and hopefully we can work through some of those together. So please make welcome my guest, Didier Pyndiah.
How are you going?
Very well, thank you. Thank you again for joining me. So how about you tell us a little bit about how you got into project world?
Yeah, look, Project World my project journey started 10 years ago. Prior to that, I was in the finance industry, very heavily invested in that finance industry. I was there for a long time, quite enjoying my job as I thought I did. Look, my role there was pretty much lending money to people. I was doing the same thing day in, day out. So after a while, I said, I wanted a career change. I wasn't sure that I liked it anymore. And someone I knew kindly, said to me, "Hey, I think you'll like IT. I think you'll do well." Not knowing what that world was all about, I kind of, looked into it a little bit and trusted the source, and so I took the step. I took the step, and my first gig was a three month gig at a company that I still work for. Uh,
Okay,
yeah,
excellent.
three month stint resetting passwords for the SAP application. SAP being it's one of the applications that we use in IT, and uh, yeah, resetting passwords. I went in there. They said to me, "Look, press this button," and that's all I knew about IT. Really, didn't know anything about what the teams did, or how they work together. But sure enough, look, after a while, I became more comfortable and confident, and the team leader there said to me, "Hey, did you want to reset some other passwords for another application?" I said, "Well, yeah, sure." So then my three month stint actually extended to 6 months, and look, I think just by asking questions and showing some interest in uh, the whole industry, I was curious. I very much likened it to what I usually do at home in terms of the stuff that I do day in, day out, and programming my Foxtail for to record something, or just little things like that as an example. But anyway, so look, I by asking questions, I went into the service desk. I was offered a position in the service desk, so I took that. Did my time in the service desk. After a while, again, showing more interest and understanding more about the different teams and the way that they work, I was offered a position in change management. So change management taught me a lot. It was very relative to the way that projects work, and I soon found that out because you have a lot of projects coming into the weekly cab meeting. So I kind of I understood that, that they follow a lot of processes, same as we did in service desk, but in terms of implementation, testing, and all those processes.
So just to interrupt for a second, Didier. So
Yeah,
when you say change management, you're not talking about change management where, you're doing corporate affairs, you're helping people going through the changes. So it's not a cultural change manager. It's
that's
more
right.
of a technical change manager whereby any sort of technical thing or project needs to implement or take on some sort of a change to a system or to a process and things. There's actually a technical board that you go to and you help to facilitate some of the admin things that need to be required. Is that
That's
right?
that's exactly right. Yeah. So not the people management, not the people that change, process change. It's more about the IT change. So which follows very similar patterns. But
Very
yeah,
right.
absolutely. So look, I think after my change management stint, I became acquainted with a lot of project managers, and I was again offered a position on a project as a coordinator, which is not dissimilar to the change management role. So went along there, and I started doing the coordination of different projects, understanding more, learning more, and yeah, was able to, I was given a project to run myself. So just investing the time and having the interest and speaking out and asking questions, I suppose, has led me to project management.
Fantastic. And so, on your journey so far, I mean, given the fact that you did not come from a project life at all and didn't really even know what project people do, when you did finally find yourself onto projects, did it feel like so grossly different to the things that you did or the skills that you have, or did you find that you were able to transfer a lot of the things that you already had into the project world?
Absolutely relatable to my day-to-day life. Like, I tinker a lot with cars and automotive, electronics and stuff like that. So I'd for example put a stereo in a car. But before I do that, I need to know what kind of stereo I'm putting in, how many amperage, and all that kind of technical detail, which I don't get to now. But yeah, that was fun at the time. You'd make a plan and you'd put that in, and then you'd have to test it, right? You'd test to make sure that it's all working okay. And then my son would get in the car. Are you happy with the sound? So then you get the business okay.
Testing. I love it.
Yeah, the testing plan was solid, and then obviously closure mean cleaning everything up, chucking the old one out, this decommissioning and all that kind of stuff. So look, that's just a simple example, but absolutely very relatable to my life. Yeah.
I love it. And this is something that I talk to my clients about all the time, because a lot of my clients are actually business professionals who are very, very good at what they do, but they've either recently found themselves delivering projects or not ever really thought that they delivered projects, and sort of when you start to say, well, you're actually a project professional, they get a little bit shocked about it because they don't think that they have those skills. And then when you sort of talk them through it, it's exactly that. We've all done projects. We do projects all the time. If you're doing a renovation, if you're buying a house, if you're renting, if you're moving house, you're planning your wedding, your child, all that sort of stuff. They're all projects that we prepare ourselves for. So we're all quite good at it. Or even if you buy a new pair of shoes, you have a budget, you've got a timeline, all those things still happen. So, so anybody can deliver projects is often what I say, which is wonderful. And so on your career, Didier, with projects, what would be one of your highs and perhaps one of your lows?
Look, I think probably one of the highs was a company merge, pretty much. So within while I was exiting or in the change management role, actually, we had a company merge which opened up a lot of opportunities. So the company merged into two different companies. A lot of opportunity came, and I suppose it just created opportunity for me. It also shook up the momentum, I guess, of that IT company that I worked for, in terms of new processes, new people, a fresh beginning kind of thing. So and that worked well for me anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Look, a project, a low would probably be the lowest point is probably when I came into IT and I knew nothing. I knew nothing, and it was scary. It was a scary world, knowing finance as well as I did. Taking a leap, not understanding what a server was, and how it was so relative to the applications we use, or the networking components, that kind of thing, right? So just the unknown. Yeah, that was pretty scary. That was probably the biggest low. Yeah.
I can imagine. And it's particularly when you've come from a career where you were the senior, you knew what you were doing, you were probably dictating some of the terms and things, and then having to take such a big step back. But was it worth it?
Absolutely. I wouldn't go back not at all.
Fantastic. Well, that's a very, very good story to tell.
Mm.
Okay. And so on your journey, what have we've kind of asked about your high and low, and I know you mentioned about starting again, that career change was probably a low for you. But what would be your biggest battle, or maybe a couple of, top battles on projects? So your pain points, I suppose.
Yeah, look, one of the biggest pain points, I suppose, I'll fast forward to today, as a project manager, and when I'm setting up the project, you go through your normal everyday doing a schedule, doing a plan, all that kind of thing, getting the budget, and then it comes to people, right? People. Building a team, I find, is always a solid team is always the hardest thing. You can build a team with very very experienced people, but is there that chemistry? The chemistry for me is probably the biggest, the most important thing within a project team. Simply, I mean, if you've got a good team, things work. You can make things work. If you've got a bad team, they just don't see it. It just gears grinding. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know, what is your definition of a bad team?
Oh, look, um, I wouldn't call it a bad team as such, but just a team without chemistry. Um, for example, you might have an issue. Someone might be unwell, right? And happens to all of us.
At the moment, it's very
At the
rare.
moment, it's very common. Uh, and that person may not be in a position to take time off, so they might be at a 50% capacity as what they normally are. Now, a bad team would could possibly say, well, he's not delivering on his section there, or just, do you know what I mean? Like an example, a good chemistry, I find, obviously the opposite of that. So everyone would pitch in, everyone would pick up the slack and bring, and move to the same goal, to the same direction, regardless. Someone might have to leave.
Yeah.
Those other people would do what they need to do to be able to pick up that slack and carry the team forward until we can get a replacement, that kind of thing.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense. Okay, so I guess I have two questions. The first question is, who sets up your team? Do you choose the people who form your project team, or is that something that's done for you?
No, look, it's largely, project managers will interview and choose the team. Yeah, absolutely. As with not just where I work, but probably a lot very common around the industry, my industry anyway. People, right? So as a project manager, I know that this person has done a good job previously. Let's bring him on. I found that myself when I was doing project coordinator role. I did well in the project, and they were happy with what I did. So that same project manager brought me somewhere else on another project, and just
Yeah, no, fair enough.
yeah.
And so if you get to pick your people yourself, why wouldn't you always end up with a good team?
Oh,
Team chemistry.
it all, team chemistry is different to, obviously, the technical ability of your team. So you might need a certain person that does something really really well, and you kind of need that person for that purpose, but he clashes with the other team, the rest of the team members, right? So she, sorry, um, clashes with the rest of the team members. So, and sometimes you might just need to manage that person and that environment. It can very quickly become a very toxic environment when no one really gets anything done if it's not, I suppose, managed properly. But look, again, to have a team that with good chemistry that flow nicely together, that's, I think that's where that makes the dream work. I think the
Yeah. No, I understand. No, and totally.
mm,
And I
mm,
think the thing is that good chemistry comes with time. It comes with trust. So,
yeah,
and you can't develop trust overnight, particularly when you don't know somebody, no matter, because people don't develop trust based on somebody's title or their years of experience. They base trust based on how they feel they're being responded to and how they get to respond to somebody else as well. So that's why it's so important. And I want to sort of give you some of my tips and insights as to how I think, that could work and some of the things that you potentially could consider. But before I do, I guess the question I have is you mentioned before about you do sometimes need to bring somebody on because they have the right skills versus the right attitude, if you like, for lack of a better term. And I totally understand that. We've all been there and we've all sort of had to do that, or at least known of that situation happening. I think there is a very fine line between, how much of the technical skill set do you accept or do you go for, and at a cost, and compromise the way that his attitude, fits into the rest of the team. Because I think sometimes you actually have to make a call when it comes to the technical skills and go and find somebody who's maybe not as technically savvy and train them up a little bit, or go and pay somebody else a little bit more money. But getting the right environment actually is much, much more critical, because otherwise, if it blows up, nobody trusts that person, and you're going to end up having to manage when we say manage everything, you can't possibly be everywhere at the same time, and you don't always know. And sometimes when the team feel like they don't want to deal with a particular person, it's very hard to come back from that place, particularly when you have a high pressured environment.
You end up putting out spot fires pretty much.
Absolutely. And sometimes those spot fires can't be put out, and that's part of the problem. So you kind of have to make compromises in terms of what you're delivering and the relationships, and and it has a lot more side effects as well. So, but I'd like to know, how do you manage it? So, you talked about before that you have to manage it. Give me maybe one or two examples of how you would manage that scenario. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just more for, can somebody else relate to that situation, which I'm sure they can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it is a difficult one. What I've tried different tactics, and not in no specific order, but obviously team building exercises. Trying to find something that they have in common. And I mean, look, I'll use one example where we did have a problematic. Excellent resource, very technical, and knew exactly what he was doing, but didn't fit in with the team. But chocolate seemed to be the common point, where he loved chocolate, and someone else on the team that there was a bit of a clash with loved chocolate, and that brought them together, right? So
It fixes so many wounds, doesn't it?
Absolutely. But look, it is a bit of a hard one. You've tried to. I've always tried to kind of find something in common where they can speak without having an argument, or look, if that really comes down to it, I guess try the opposite way, putting him in a room, and no one else, just those two and myself, and talking it out, really, and sometimes when they're not confronted, but if they're put in front of each other, you'll see a lot of those walls come down, and they kind of calm down and start talking to each other, and just talking through it. Yeah, a lot of the times works as well. Yeah,
I think that's a terrific strategy. Because half of the time people have a problem with somebody else, but they never tell them face to face, or they write to each other, and you can see that the email tone gets more and more heated. But once you see that those two people, as you've said, you put them in a room, most people don't like conflict, and most people then realize, hang on, that's a real person. I can relate to that person in some shape, or maybe I don't feel like I can relate to them, but they are a person, and it's much harder for me to be as angry, especially when they're talking to me, and I've got nowhere else to go. I've got no other defenses. So I think that's a terrific strategy. Some of the things that I recommend is, firstly, and maybe this is something that you do, because I guess we haven't sort of gone through what's your process, and I'd love to be able to hear some of that stuff, but we don't have the time. But one of the first things I do, and I would always recommend, is when you first develop that team, there are some ground rules that you need to set up. That's the first thing. But even before then, people need to understand what kind of culture are you actually aiming to achieve, because for some people it might be, fluffy, nice, we all work together and I really want to know what you do on the weekend. That's a perfect culture for me. But for other people, it's like, I don't want to really talk to anybody unless I have to, and I just want to get my work done. And there's no necessarily right or wrong way to work. But there has to be some sort of, general consensus amongst everybody. So there are a couple of things, if I was to unpack that, I'd say when you first form the team, I always do and recommend that team bonding that you're talking about, but team bonding can be really, really fluffy, where everybody says, okay, let's go grab a beer, or, let's go grab a drink, or these days it's much harder, let's grab a drink over Zoom, that type of scenario. Or let's make it a fun Zoom meeting, just as a team, and go around the room and introduce each other. That's fine. But what you really want to do is, what are we all trying to achieve out of this, right? We're all trying to help each other when we do get sick. And at the moment, and going forward, this is a real reality. So, how do we make sure that we develop and bring that trust in, bring it up to speed as quickly as we can? You'll never be able to fast track it too much. But I think if people understand what roles they do firstly, so am I clear on the role that I do? And then am I clear on the role that my team does, each individual? So we're not talking about titles. We're talking about you, Didier, as a person. What do you do every day? And maybe that means I shadow you and you shadow me, for half of the day, or for a couple of hours, or whatever it might mean. Or maybe we do, a spotlight of a team member per week, where we sort of talk about, for half an hour, that person gets the limelight and they get to tell me what is it that they do, or they get to tell the team what is it that they do. And then I want to hear about what is your pain point, as a team member, and I'll tell you mine, because if we understand, and sometimes the pain points are caused by the team, and that's why somebody becomes more bitter with the team, because they feel like that person, every single time they meet with my stakeholder, they go and give them the wrong information, or they never get what I need from them,
Or they'll promise something that I haven't promised.
Absolutely. And all of those things are things that we can all go, oh yeah, I can nod my head and, relate to those scenarios. But if I know that, Didier, your gripe is when people do or whatever it might be for you, then I'm going to consciously be more aware and trying not to do those sorts of things. And as a team, if we all start to do that and we all understand this is how we make that person's life easier. So when I'm going to speak to, that person or their stakeholder, I'm going to make sure that I already get it, because maybe they never even asked me to, but I already know that if I got that information for them, it would make their life so much easier. Or I know that if I was to just add an extra field when I'm capturing requirements, to capture the date of something, for example, that's just going to make that developer's life so much easier. Why wouldn't I do it? So that, if somebody does something nice for you or does something to help you, that definitely helps, in aiding trust, right? Yeah. So that's one example, but it's not just then fluffy team bonding, where we have a beer together, because I might not even like beer, and I might just be going there thinking about what time we get to leave and go home, because I don't really care about that sort of stuff. But what I do care about is somebody getting the right requirements, or somebody not stuffing up the work that I do, So, and I think that's one of the key things. If we know what job we're supposed to be doing, and then we know what our team is doing, it's much easier to then say, okay, well, when you're out, I can help with this. Or maybe you do those shadowing, that's something else that I've, seen done really well, and I've done, where they do shadowing. You might be a developer and I might be, I can't think of a term. Okay.
Network engineer.
A coordinator.
Or coordinator, yep.
Because I'm not technical and you are. But I can still shadow you, because I still know the people you need to speak to. I can still flow some of the work that needs to happen and the process that you go through, and some of your frustrations or some of your wins, for example, those sorts of things, and then you can swap that. But what that's doing is, not only is that making the developer's job a lot easier if they do need to take that downtime, somebody can help. But on top of that, it's actually empowering the coordinator, because they're learning a lot more, as well. So it's actually multitasking too. And I think those sorts of things really help, that helps to build that bond, or that chemistry, as you call it. And I love that term, it truly is chemistry. And then the other thing is it's about creating very strong boundaries, so as a team, but doing it together, because we all have individual boundaries, right? And they'll be different. But as a team, when you first if you were to kick off your project and say, okay, this is, we're building our team chemistry, and this is how we do it, right? I'll tell you what my role is. You guys tell me what your role is. Tell me what a good thing for you is, what people do, and what a bad thing is, as an example. And then, excuse me. And then I want you to tell me how I can, how you can empower me, for example, what we can do together, So So those are sorts of examples. But then let's talk about what are the boundaries. What are the things that I just, like, for example, don't ask me to work weekends. I'm not doing it. Or don't send me an email at 11 o'clock and at night and tell me, you don't have to respond. Just don't send me emails at 11 o'clock at night as a team, unless that's your environment. But whatever it is, you suit around your environment, obviously, but whatever it is as a team, and maybe you have a list of what everybody's ideal boundary would be, and then you vote as a collective. So we've set it together. So it's harder to break those sorts of agreements when you've done it together. And it's easier to hold people to account when they do break it, because you did it as a team. You were in on it,
Yeah.
So not that we're looking to, to put the negative spotlight, but it is about accountability and ownership too.
Absolutely. Yep. Look, I think from an accountability perspective, that has been one of my pain points. So, some of those points that you gave me there is probably, that sounds like it could potentially work. Yeah, I'll give that a go.
Perfect, excellent. And I'd love to hear back from you, as to how those things work. But but you're doing an amazing job, it sounds like it. And I love the fact that you're finding all the opportunities on projects, which I'm a big commandeer for, to say that there are so many opportunities that lie ahead, not only for the project, I guess the project that you're rolling out in the business, but also for you as an individual. You're a perfect example of that. Look at the career path and the trajectory that you've taken, because they are so many of your skills anyway. You can organize that. So.
I didn't actually realize that until I actually went in IT, and I was like, hang on a minute, I've done this before.
Yes, and I think the trick is finding the industry that fits right for you. But in terms of projects itself, unless you're not somebody who wants to, I guess if you're somebody who doesn't want, because there is pressure that comes with projects, that goes without saying, if that's not your thing, and you want to do the same thing all the time without change, then obviously that's not for you. But there are plenty of opportunities if that is you.
Absolutely, yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Look, thank you so much. Do you have any parting words for us before we leave you, Didier?
Oh, look, I think one of the, as it was explained to me, look, if you're not sure about it, just ask the questions. Just ask the questions. If IT is something that you could potentially, or projects is something that could potentially you've looked at and you're interested in, then ask the questions. It is a great place to be, a great little industry to be in terms of project management specifically. It is a niche market, because once you start doing projects, those project skills are transferable to different industries as well, in terms of one could be telecom, one could be energy or whatever. But project managers, they seem to come and go. So look, I think if you have any interest at all, just give it a go. It's actually not very hard at all. That's probably the easiest way to.
Absolutely. And I think I'll extend that to say it's not just, project management is something that I've also done, but I've also done the other roles, and obviously you have too. Just the world of projects, I think, is quite exciting and interesting. It doesn't have to be management. You might not be interested in management at all.
Absolutely.
I love the idea of being on projects, in
your too. And being part of a team, and the kind of the feeling that you get, it's not very often that a project fails, because if you all got the common goal of success, then you're more than likely to succeed. So, and that feeling that you get when you're actually delivering something new to the business, and ticking off those requirements that you set from the very start, it's a sense of achievement. So, and then the beauty about it is that you leave that behind and you start a new project. Right? So it's not that the same thing, mundane thing every single day. Next time you might be something completely different, but it's still a project, right? So absolutely, yeah.
Fantastic. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your time and all of your wonderful insights and helpful hints too.
Thanks for having me.
As you know, we will be letting our subscribers know about the interview and posting it out. So yes, make sure you get everybody to join to watch the interview when it does go live. But thank you again for your time, Didier, and I look forward to hearing how those some of those tips and tricks have helped you if they have.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm looking forward to the next conversation. Yep.
Excellent. Take care. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Corinne. Cheers.